Shabbat Shalom, happy Sabbath. This morning, we're thankful for Yah's keeping of us, and we have come to give him his glory and to praise him. This morning, our scholarship mandates the study of marriage, a blood covenant. That's our subject today, marriage, a blood covenant. And perhaps you could use it as a kind of a pedagogical moment, a teaching moment in which we intend to explore the theology and the symbols relating to biblical marriage. It was only a few weeks ago that I received a letter from the clerk of the circuit and county courts in Broward County, and they wanted to know whether or not I would like to continue being one of those who offer premarital counseling in the county. And I wrote back saying, yes, but I emphasized the point that I do only biblical counseling. And in light of the fact that marriage is something that is abused in its application, it makes sense that we take our scholarship there this morning and look at marriage in terms of Yah's original intent, what he meant when he spoke in Bereshith chapter 2 in verse 24, and he says, for this reason, a man should leave his mother and his father and be cleaved, be connected, and be unseparated from the wife of his youth. We want to look at that this morning. But before we do that, I want to read from the book of Jeremiah, if you will join me there, chapter 1, and we will commence at verse 15. Before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee, and before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. Jeremiah, before you appeared in Israel as a prophet, I knew you in the womb. And so I had placed on you this anointing, that in the time of the king and in the time of good King Josiah, you would be prophesying and you would be telling the people things about me. What does Yah mean that he knew Jeremiah before the womb? It's clear that Yah is letting us know that when he made the first man, Adam, he had placed in Adam the seeds of all generation. And he was the one who decided when each person and each generation would be born. So from the time he made Adam, Jeremiah was in Adam's loins, even as we are. That's what Yah is letting us know. So as we look at marriage, we come to understand that the man is the one who carries the genes, the seed, for all generation. So he is the generation carrier. He carries the genes. And therefore, the man is designed that way to carry the gene and to be the one to procreate, to sow the seed, and the woman, his wife, is the one who incubates the seed. Sower went forth to sow. And so we need to understand that the man is made in a certain way, he's designed in a certain way, and he doesn't have a cycle like the woman does. And so the man is ready at all time in every season, unlike the woman. And therefore, those who enter into a marriage relationship, they need to understand that. Yah made him that way. And so I want to start now with the book of Bereshith, chapter 38. And the word says, and it came to pass at that time that Yehuda, that's Judah, went down from his brethren and turned to a certain Adullamite whose name was Ira. And Yehuda saw there a daughter of a certain Canaanite whose name was Shua. And he took her and went into her, and she conceived and bare a son and called his name And she conceived again and bare a son, and she called his name Onan. And she yet again conceived and bare a son and called his name Shelah, and he was at Chezib when she bare him. Judah said, I was not at home when she gave birth to the third child. And Judah took a wife, for his firstborn, whose name was Tamar. Tamar is a descendant of Abraham. But her husband was a descendant of the Canaanites. And Judah said unto Onan, go into thy brother's wife and marry her and raise a seed for thy brother. That's verse 8. Because in verse 7 we learn that was wicked, and Yah slew him. He was wicked. He had spent a year with this woman, and because his mother, a Canaanite, did not like Tamar, she advised him not to know her, and it displeased Yah. He was wicked. So I'm showing you here that the Levirate marriage principle under which they came, it meant that if a brother dies and did not leave a son, the other brother's responsibility was to marry her and provide a seed, so that the name of the deceased son would live on. But they didn't want that. So the connotative view here, when two people get married and decide we don't want any children, I wonder how Yah views that. Because he said, in the book of Malachi, he said, I want righteous offsprings. So Judah said unto Onan, go into thy brother's wife and marry her and raise up a seed for thy brother. And Onan knew that the seed should not be his. And it came to pass when he went in unto his brother's wife that he spilled it on the ground, lest that he should give seed to his brother. He spilt his semen that carries the sperm to germinate. They call that coitus interruptus, meaning that he withdrew and spilled his seed, and the word says it displeased Yah. He was practicing birth control at that time. Coitus interruptus. Spilt the semen that carries the sperm on the floor, and the word said it displeased Yahweh, which prompted me to be thinking now, what then might Yah be thinking about the world today with all these methods of birth control? Yah says, I have given the man all the genes to carry for the generations, and he is there to populate the earth. And some people are now saying we have too many people in the world. Some are saying we don't want any children. When Yah says marriage is supposed to be to produce children. And so the word says that Onan, because of his own selfishness, knew that the child would not be his, but his brother, spilt his seed on the ground, and it offended Yah. So as I look at this, I ask myself the question, how many children are born in nations today out of wedlock? Because the whole idea is that sexual intimacy was not intended to take place outside of the context of marriage. Therefore, every woman who is married was expected to be a virgin at that time. That's the divine intent. I know what the culture says, and I know what the culture practices, but Yah's intent that every woman who gets married should be a virgin. Mattithyahu, in his book, wrote, the Almighty Creator wisely placed a membrane laden with blood vessels at the entrance to a woman's genital opening. like a veiled gateway. I'm reading from verse 5, from page 5, I should say. And the book is Broken Family, Fractured Society. So Yah placed this membrane like a veiled gateway. This membrane covers the entrance to the genital passage called the hymen. Therefore, no man may know a woman which has maiden credentials without breaking this tenuous tissue. At that very moment, when the hymen breaks, a blood covenant is made between the man and the woman as the hymen releases the blood inside, and there is a blood covenant. Our subject today is marriage, a blood covenant. So when a woman becomes promiscuous during her early years and then gets married, she takes some of that spirit from that man or these men, depending on her life circumstances, and she brings those into the marriage. And we're made to understand that when a man and a woman become sexually intimate, the man not only transmits his sperms into the woman's womb, but he transmits his history. An Australian research conducted in 2014 says the man transmits his whole history. The possibility exists if that man has certain defects, mentally or otherwise, both you and the child receives it. And so, in other words, the woman stores the man's DNA after sexual intimacy. And that's why Yah said, do not yoke yourself with unbelievers. If you marry a man who carries certain symptoms, you take that on. You take that on. And so the word is very clear when Yah says you must only marry certain people. As we read chapter 38, don't miss the essence of it. This is Judah. This is the family of Judah. And the Messiah must come through the line of Judah. And Onan is spilling his seed on the floor to stop the development of the nation of Judah. It offended Yah. How could the Messiah, who is coming through the line of David, be born if this man is spilling his seed on the floor? How could that be? I want to read something to you from the Witness of Yehuda. This is a book that they have taken out of your Bible, but we have it in ours. The Hallelujah Scriptures, the complete edition. And I'm reading from chapter 10, the Witness of Yehuda, and the word says, and after these events, my son took Tamar from Aram, Naharaim, as wife, a daughter of Aram. I said earlier is a relative of Abraham. Now Hur was wicked, and he was in need concerning Tamar because she was not of the land of Canaan. Tamar was not a Canaanite. And on this third night, a messenger of Yahweh smote him. He refused to be with her. And he had not known her according to the evil craftiness of his mother, for he did not desire to have children by her. We're getting more detail here from the witness of Judah than we do in the King James Version. In the days of the wedding feast, I gave Onan to her in marriage. This is Judah telling you what he did. And he also in wickedness did not know her, though he spent a year with her. He spent a whole year, 12 months with Tamar, and did not have intimacy with her. It offended Yah. And when I threatened him, Judah threatened his son. He went into her, but he spilled the seed on the ground according to the command of his mother. His mother told him to do this. And he also died through wickedness. Understand where I'm going with this. Sometimes we see wickedness as when people destroy another person, or we steal from another person, or we do wickedly, but very seldom do we associate wickedness with intimacy. And I intended to give Shelah also to her, but his mother did not permit it. He says, I wanted to give the third son also to Tamar, because that's what the Levirate marriage principles say. The law says this should happen. But this Canaanite woman decided that she didn't want that for her son. She did evil against Tamar because she was not of the daughters of Canaan, and she also herself was. So because the mother decided what the son was going to do, she lost two sons, and then she lost her own life. Because she refused to cooperate with the will of Yah in marriage. They died. And so as we read on in chapter 38, we see Tamar now is trying to preserve the line of Judah. Line of Judah. And I can understand the rationale here that, okay, you've been married a couple of times, and we've lost two sons, and the third one, we don't want him to die either, so we're not going to give him to you. That's perhaps is the thinking of the mother, but she should have taken responsibility of her own action. And Tamar said, I must preserve the line. Perhaps she understood the prophecy that the Messiah, Mashiach, will come through the line of Judah. But how is the line of Judah going to be preserved when the seed, the semen, is being spilt on the floor? Recklessly. Prodigally. How? How? And so Tamar heard that Judah is coming to town to shear sheep. So she dressed up as if she is a woman of the night, a harlot, a prostitute. And perhaps, I don't know what the culture was, but I asked myself, why did she conceive that if she dressed like an harlot, he would want her? Perhaps that was the done thing at that time. And so she dressed up, and there was no diplomacy here, There was no kind of emotional affection. He just walked up to her. Can I go into you, says the word. Kind of a cold, you know. I don't know which woman wants to be with an iceberg, but that's how it sounds as you read it here. Can I go into you? And perhaps that is the culture today. That's how people talk. Meet you at the bar, have a few drinks, and we go home. So as I think of this, and I think of it in light of the world, as I ask the question, how many children are born out of wedlock today? As I think of it and as I've read the reports, I think it's 48% in America. This great America, 48% of lived lives or born lives, they're born out of wedlock. It's 51% in the United Kingdom. 51. 33 in Germany. 63 in the Netherlands. And though we don't get the same reporting frequency, I think it's about 9 or 10% in China. But if we go to Jamaica, we're made to understand that 80 to 85% of the children there are born out of wedlock. When Yeshua said, "You adulterous generation," you better understand what Yeshua was saying when he said, "You adulterous generation." Paul said, "Flee fornication." The culture said, "Let's run to it. Let's run to it." And so people are having children left, right, and center, and there is no responsibility either by the government or the individual as to the fact that this is sin. Nobody calls it a sin anymore. And so the word says that the people one day spoke to Yeshua. Come with me to the book of Matthew. Matthew chapter 19. Matthew chapter 19. And it came to pass that when Yeshua had finished these saying, he departed from Galilee and came into the coast of Judea beyond Jordan, that's Jordan. And great multitudes followed him, and he healed them there. The Pharisees who came into him, tempting him, and saying unto him, "Is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause?" And he answered and said unto them, "Have you not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female?" They were not coming to ask him with the intent of knowing what was right and what was wrong. They were trying to catch him out and to get permission from him to do exactly what they were doing. That was the intent. And people are notorious for trying to catch you out with hard questions. Can a man put away his wife? Or for anything? I'm emphasizing these points because, as I indicated earlier, this is a pedagogical moment. It's a teaching moment, because if you're a counselor and you're counseling someone on marriage, you've got to know your subject. You got to know what the word of Yah said before you counsel them. Have you not read? That's what he said. That he which made them at the beginning, in Genesis 2:24, made them male and female, and said, for this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and the twain shall be one flesh. One essence manifested in two persons. Understand that. For those of you who don't believe in the Trinity, it's one essence. Manifestation in three persons: Father, Son, and Ruach. So don't tell me that the Ruach, the Holy Spirit, showed you something that is inconsistent with the word Yeshua. It's not going to happen. The word here is a transcript of his character, a reduction to words. In the beginning was the word Yeshua. And we are now reading the written word, who came among us as the living word, and the Ruach came in his name. So the Ruach is not going to tell you anything, teach you anything that is inconsistent with the word. Understand that. He says, and notice what Yeshua does. He points them back to Genesis. He points them to Genesis. Wherefore, they are no more twain, but one flesh. What therefore Yahweh hath joined together, let no man put asunder. Let no judge, no attorney, no pastor, no bishop, no elder separate you. Is that clear? No man. Marriage, a blood covenant, is a forever relationship. Only the sleep of death should intervene between husband and wife. They say unto him, why did Moses then command to give a writing of divorcement and put away if she was not pleasing in his sight? Why? Fair question. It seemed on the surface. Why? Moses understood the chaos that was taking place. He understood what was going on, that the people were divorcing their wives and doing things that were totally inconsistent with Yah's intent, and he was trying to regulate it. It was not an agreement to it. He was regulating the chaos. And notice something else. The 10 Commandments were given at Mount Sinai. These laws, the book of Deuteronomy, which they pointed to, chapter 24, was given at the plains of Moab. Quite a difference. Quite a difference. And let me explain what I mean by that. Because in the 10 Commandments, Yahweh said, thou shalt not commit adultery. Don't do that. But in chapter 24 of Deuteronomy, which was given at the plains of Moab, Moses is saying to them, okay, because of the situation, because of the hardness of your heart, you don't want to repent, you can give her a certificate of divorce. So let us make the distinction. Come with me to Exodus, and we will look at chapter 24. Exodus chapter 24, and we will take verse 7. And he took the book of the covenant, that's the Ten Commandments, and read in the audience of the people, and they said, all that Yahweh had said, we will do and be obedient. This is in relation to the offer, the covenant relationship that was made in Exodus chapter 19, verse 5 and 6. Yah said, if you obey me, you will be unto me a kingdom of priests. They said everything Yah says we will do. And they never did. Soon after, they found themselves worshiping a golden calf, after which they received the book of Deuteronomy, which means a second law. So the book of the covenant is what covers marriage from the very inception of time, Genesis 2:24. I want to make that point. So come with me now to the book of Deuteronomy, which is the subject of our discourse here, and we will look at chapter 31. Chapter 31, and we will look at verses 25 and 26. That Moses, that Moshe, the same one who saw Yah at the burning bush, he commanded the Levites, which bear the ark of the covenant, which bear the 10 commandments of Yah, saying, take this book of the law. See the distinction? In Exodus chapter 24 and verse 7, he puts the book of the covenant inside of the ark. But he's now telling them to put the book of Deuteronomy, which is their schoolmaster, which will take them up until the time of the Messiah, because they had flunked the test of the 10 Commandments. He says, put it in the side of the ark of the covenant of Yahweh your Elohim, that it may there be a witness against you. It will see what you have done. It will be in the side of the ark. Why? Because you have broken that which is inside. So that's the point I want to make. And so when the people came to Yeshua, they were saying, Moses said this, and Moses said that. And he's letting them know, no, that was not how it was in the beginning. In the beginning, it was one man, one woman, and it was a lifelong experience, and only the sleep of death could intervene in that. The society and the churches today, they say differently. So let's look at what the apostle Shaul, Paul, said. Come with me to Romans chapter 7. Know ye not, brethren, for I speak to them that know the law, how that the law hath dominion over a man as long as he liveth. For the woman which hath a husband is bound by the law to her husband, so long as he liveth. The woman, the wife, is bound to her husband as long as she liveth. But if the husband be dead, and only when he is dead, she is loose from the law of her husband. So then, if while her husband liveth, she be married to another, she shall be called an adulteress. Are you with me? So we have in the society consecutive polygamy. And we also have simultaneous polygamy. Well, what do I mean? Consecutive polygamy says you can have any amount of husbands or wives as long as you have them one at a time, consecutively. That's what the culture teaches. In other cultures, it says you can have any amount of wives or husbands at the same time. That is simultaneous polygamy. And we have both systems running side by side in the society. This generation of vipers. And so this sacred institution of marriage, it now, the practice of it sends a stench to Yahweh, because both husband and wife, they don't know how to respond to each other. And they use their intimacy as a weapon against each other. When we read in the book of Yobelim, chapter 3 and verse 15, we're told that Adam spent 7 years in the Garden of Eden with his wife, 7 years. But we notice that no children were born in paradise. No children. And I'm wondering, why is it that Adam did not have any children in paradise and they lived together for 7 years? And moreover, the word says they were naked before Yah. And perhaps married couple need to understand that being naked together before Yah is not a sin. It says they were naked. You need not dress as if you're going on a winter trip. They were naked. And it was all right. They were clothed in righteousness until they sinned, and then they started looking for clothes. That's what the word says. So Paul says, if the woman marries while her husband is still alive, she's an adulteress. You know why that is troubling? It's troubling on several counts. One, because the Bible says no adulteress will be found in the kingdom, but they're found in the church. The church is supposed to be a gateway that leads to the kingdom. The church is supposed to be the custom and the customs officers that make sure that no contraband comes through to go into the kingdom. But we find that sometimes the very man at the pulpit is on his third marriage. Sometimes even more. Sometimes even more. What does he tell his congregants? As if they care. Paul says she's an adulteress. The culture says it's all right. So they came to Yeshua and they asked him. They don't believe in the resurrection, so they're trying to catch him out. They want to know, based on the Levirate marriage principles, what if a woman follows that principle and is married 7 times? the resurrection, whose wife is she? Yeshua says, you don't get it, do you? You do not get it. There is no giving and taking in marriage in the kingdom. You will be like the angels. They don't die. They live. And you will be like them in the kingdom. There will be no giving and take. Now you understand Genesis chapter 6. When those angels, those celestial beings, came down and took the daughters of men and married them and had children we call the Nephilim. You understand now why it offended Yah. And because those Nephilims were not his creation, he brought the flood and destroyed all of them. And so Noah was now left to repeople the earth. If Noah had done what Onan did, we would be in trouble. Noah, repeople the earth. Repeople the earth. Never call the woman to do that. You are the seed. You are the sower. You go and sow the seed, and the woman, your wife, will incubate that, nurture that, because there is going to be harvest. All these children and people we are producing, there is an harvest of souls, says Revelation. The angel was heard to have said, pull out your sickle, because the earth is ripe. Melissa thought that. The earth is ripe. When you have a nation with 85% of children being born out of wedlock, and we're afraid to say that's a sin, we're in trouble. And when you think of this in the context of what happened in slavery, when these black men were being forced to impregnate women. Why? Because of economic means. Using this sacred institution of intimacy, which was to be conducted only in marriage, you are forcing men to produce children that they would not have any responsibility. If Yah says what Onan did is wicked, then slavery in this sense was more than wicked. So don't think that those who did it in America and Britain have gotten away with it. No! They haven't. Yah says, I don't change. The same yesterday, the same I was in Onan's day, I am the same today. The only difference, I've given grace and the people have not repented. I am going to pay them according to their work. I'm going to give them payment. All these slave masters who raped our foreparents, they won't get away with it. The Bible says, even the sea will give them up, and they will come to the white throne judgment, and they will be judged for their wickedness, even as Onan. On the 26th of June, 2015, the Supreme Court of this land said, it is all right. We are supreme. It is all right for a man and another man to be married, the same as a woman and a woman. Yah said, no, you can't do that. They said, yes, we can. Reckless. Prodigal. That's what they are. And so the pharmaceutical industry, they have built all kind of things they call birth control. And we accept these things as if they're all right without any question. Yeah, he's going to ask us, did you not read Onan's story? Did you? Did you not read her story? Did you not read Samson's story? Did you not read Judah's biography? Oh, yes, we did. So you just didn't care then. Let's go back to Matthew 19. Verse 9. And I say unto you, whosoever shall divorce his wife, except for fornication. Now, you see, the King James here put divorce. It's putting away. Now, understand, I want you to stay with me a little as we consider this moment pedagogical. It's a teaching moment for us all. And I say to you, whosoever shall divorce his wife, except for fornication, and shall marry another, committed adultery. And whosoever married her who is divorced doth also commit adultery. You see the contradiction here? Let's look at it again. And I say unto you, whosoever shall divorce his wife, except for fornication. Fornication is between two people who are unmarried. Porneo. The King James says that if you divorce her for fornication, no, this is not adultery. Remember, in biblical times, you don't divorce someone for adultery because the adultery was a death warrant. You would be stoned to death. You've got to understand that. When a person commits adultery in biblical time, you would be stoned. This fornication here is between two people who are unmarried legally. Take, for example, in the Hebrew context, when two people are engaged to be married, it's a binding relationship. And it requires a certificate of divorcement to release them from the engagement situation. That's what this is talking about. If either of those two people who are seeking to enter into a blood covenant strayed during the courtship and commit fornication, that is the time to get rid of them. You give them a divorce. That's what the word here is saying. But the average person reads this, they're saying no. We see no evidence here for remarriage after divorce. We see none. Paul says the relationship between the man and the woman, it's a lifelong experience. So come with me now to chapter 7 of 1 Corinthians. Verse 5, refuse ye not one another, except it be for consent of time. Yeah, saying when you get married, don't refuse each other intimacy, except you're praying or fasting. And come together again, that Satan tempt you not for your incontinency. Verse 11, well, let's start from verse 10 here. And unto the married I command. It's a command. Listen to this command. Yet not I, but Yahweh. Let not the wife depart from the husband. It's a command. Let not the wife depart from the husband. But, and if she depart, let her remain unmarried. Is that clear? The church said, no, you can marry again. And the pastor who is just divorced, he's marrying you. What a lot of mess we've got ourselves into. He said, remain unmarried or be reconciled to her husband, and let not the husband put away his wife. But to the rest I speak, not Yahweh. If any brother hath a wife that believeth not, and she please to dwell with him, let him not put her away. And the woman which hath a husband that believeth not, and if he please to dwell with her, let her not leave him. Now, the connotation of that is this. Let's say two people were unbelievers before, and during the course of their marriage, one of them decides to seek Yah, gets baptized, and now worships him. The word says, if the one who has not yet given their life over to Yeshua decides to remain with you, don't get rid of him or her. Because that one is sanctified by the one who is Kodesh, the one who is holy. Don't do that. But that's not how the society works today. And so we want to look at Malachi, and we will take chapter 2. And now, O ye priest, this commandment is for you. For whom? For the priest, your pastor, your bishop, your elders. If you will not hear, and if you will not lay it to heart to give glory unto my name, saith Yahweh of hosts, I will even send a curse upon you. I will do what? I will send a curse upon you, and I will curse your blessing. Yea, I have cursed them already, because you do not lay it to heart. Behold, I will corrupt your seed. He said, I will corrupt your seed and spread dung on your faces, even the dung of your solemn feast, and one shall take you away with it. Verse 6, the law of truth was in his mouth, and iniquity was not found in his lips. He walked with me in peace and equity, and did turn many away from iniquity. Verse 14, yet you say, wherefore, because Yahweh has been a witness between thee and the wife of your youth, against whom thou hast dealt treacherously, yet she is thy companion and the wife of thy covenant. Let me read that again for emphasis. The word here says, Yah was a witness at the first marriage. He was a witness between thee and the wife of your youth, against whom thou hast dealt treacherously. You have dealt treacherously with her because you have divorced her. And Yah was a witness there. But Yah said, she is still your companion. She's still your companion. Now, this is where I said earlier that it's serious on many counts. Because in the churches we have today, the denominational churches, we have people who are married multiple times. Some of them are walking around with other people's husbands and other people's wives. And if we were to say, Sister so-and-so, Sister Blank, where are you going with that woman's husband? They would get angry with us. Oh, where are you going with, brother so-and-so's wife? They would get angry. Why am I saying that? If, and we know it's not a if, the adulterer will not be found in the kingdom, but we have many of them in the churches, we need to address it. Attending church then would be counterproductive Your intent is to go to the kingdom, but you cannot get past the custom. The wife that you have, or the husband that you have, they already have someone whom they have covenanted with for life, but they have walked out, they've left, they've divorced, but in Yah's reckoning, you are still married. She's still your companion. So you see that handsome gentleman that you're walking around on your arms with, it's not yours. That beautiful lady, well-spoken, well-dressed, she's not yours, because her husband is still alive. So are you saying, I'm not saying anything, I'm simply telling you what Yah says. If you marry someone while your husband or your wife is still alive, you are an adulteress or an adulterer. That's what the word says. It's a blood covenant. Verse 15, Malachi chapter 2. And did he not make of twain a unity so that might have right spirit? And why a unity? So that he might produce Kodah seed, that you might produce a holy seed. Therefore, take heed to your spirit, and let none of you deal unfaithfully against the wife of your youth. Let no man deal unfaithfully with the wife of his youth, his first wife. For Yahweh, the Elohim of Israel, said, he hated putting away, for one covered violence with his garment, said Yahweh of hosts. Therefore, take heed to your spirit, that ye deal not treacherously. Yah hates putting away. So why does the church love it? From the days of John the Baptist, people are trying to get into the kingdom by force. That's what the word says. But the Herods of this world, they don't like the John the Baptist of this world. Why? Because John the Baptist would look them in the face and say, you cannot have your brother's wife. People have lost their heads over it. You go to churches today, in the same gathering, among the same brethren believing in the same Messiah, in the same church, one sister is over here and another sister is over there, and she is watching the pastor, the elder, the bishop of the church marrying a brother or a sister whose wife, whose husband is still alive. How could that be? When people are telling you, oh, you know, I have a degree in systematic theology. I have a DD. I have a degree in divinity. Really? And telling your congregation that it's all right to be married several times? So they came to Yeshua. Tell us. Because we don't believe in the resurrection. Whose wife would she be if she's married 7 times? And in their little minds, they think, we got him now cornered. But he said, you don't get it. You do not get it. And then we read in John chapter 4, Yohanan chapter 4, a woman comes to the well. And she'd been married 6 times. And the one she's living with is not hers, her paramour, a boyfriend. Not hers. Yeshua says, go and call your husband. Well, what does that have to do? All I want is a drink of water. Go and call your husband. I have none. Wait, lady. You have been married 6 times, and you are telling me that you don't have a husband? Yeshua said, you spoke well. She knew that Yeshua was only in attendance at the first wedding. The husband, the wife of her youth, of his youth. Somebody somewhere, I suspect, will be saying, are you saying then that the husband or the wife that I have, I must put them away? I'm simply telling you what Yah says. All right, let's go there. Let's go back to Yohanan, because just in case you might allege that I am the one who's saying it. Let's go to verse 19, chapter 4, Yohanan. The woman said unto him, Sir, I perceive that thou art a prophet. Our fathers worship in the mountain, and ye say that in Jerusalem is a place where men ought to worship. Yeshua said unto her, Woman, believe me, the hour cometh when you shall neither be in Jerusalem or in the mountain. For the Father wants true worship. That's what he is letting her know. The Father wants true worship. So it doesn't matter whether you're on the stone or in a house church. He wants true worship. So the question is, I'm reading that for a reason. How are you going to worship him truthfully when your heart is not right? You're living with somebody's husband or somebody else's wife. Tell me. How are you going to do that? So in verse 16, what did he say? Go call your husband. Go. And then come back to me. The woman answered and said, I have no husband. Yeshua said to her, Thou hast well said, for thou hast 5 husbands. I had earlier said 6, including the one she was living with. Thou hast had 5 husbands, and he whom thou hast is not thy husband. In that saith thou truly. You're a prophet. I don't have to be a prophet to know that you've been married 5 or 6 times. It's down there in the records of the courthouse. So you're greater than Moses then. Yeah, I instruct Moses. I told him all that he knew on Mount Sinai. How can a woman who has had 5 husbands, or 6, if you call common law husband, not be married? Because only the first counts. Only the first. In Yohanan chapter 8, on the last day of the feast, a woman caught in adultery was brought to him. She's facing death. The stones were piled up. They said, Moses. They keep calling Moses. Moses said this. Moses said that we ought to stone her. Remember, he's talking to an adulterous generation. He says, any of you who are without sin, cast the first stone. So the thing is this: we have a problem. The daughters of Zion, they walk pridefully. They have prideful steps, at least according to Isaiah. I shall be a lady forever. So they did not lay the thoughts of purity to their hearts. Neither did they remember that sin has consequences. Isaiah 47, verse 7. Therein, purity is the imperative burden that accompany the message of John the Baptist, so valiantly taught. For Johanan had said to Herod, it is not lawful to have your brother's wife. Not lawful. Once you have found the person you have chosen to be your life partner, and you have formed a blood covenant. Remember Hebrews 9:22. And almost all things are by law purged by blood, and without the shedding of blood, no remission of sin. Your own Iman will testify against you on the day of judgment. This was the man that you formed in a relationship with, a marriage relation, a blood covenant, and you put him away, and your hymen will communicate with your conscience. It needs 2 or 3 witnesses. That's 2. And Yahweh was there at the first wedding. 3 witnesses. You're guilty as charged. May we understand these things and the seriousness of them, and not waste time with people who teach us differently. Yah says, I don't change. So when people are using Deuteronomy chapter 24 to make their case, they are forgetting that that is their schoolmaster that would lead them to the Messiah. When the Messiah comes back, according to Luke 16 and verse 16, the laws and the prophets, they were preached up until John. But now, the kingdom, we're preparing ourselves to step outside of time and into eternity. Our lives must be right. But we have a situation where we're ignoring the word of Yah. Whoever Yah has joined together, let no man, no downtown judge, no uptown attorney can separate you. It is written with an iron pen in the Shemahim, in the heavens. You are married to this man or that woman. So whatever the judge says, whatever the attorney says, but I hear you say, but there is an exception clause, as they so often. Let me close on this, show you what the exception clause is, or to remind you. Come with me to Matthew 1. And the case here is Miriam, or Mary when you anglicize her, and Joseph. The word says, verse 18, now the birth of Yeshua, the Messiah, was on this wise. When his mother Miriam was espoused to Joseph, before they came together, she was found to be with child. Let's understand what we're saying here. Miriam, the church called her Mary. That's not her name. She's engaged here to Joseph, as we would call engagement. But in the Hebrew context at that time, it was a legal, binding situation. Joseph found out that she was pregnant. She was with child. He thought, as reasonable, rational people would have done, how could it be that you are pregnant, we are not yet married? Because Isaiah said, this is a virgin. Her hymen is still intact. No man has gone into her. So her husband-to-be is thinking, I don't want to cause any trouble. I'm just going to privily put you away quietly. Then Joseph, her husband, notice, he is called her husband, even though the marriage is not consummated. Legally, she needs a divorce from him, a certificate of divorce, if he's going to put her away. He's not willing to make her a public example, not like our culture. In a newspaper, and we tell our story to a magazine, and we tell what happened and how this happened. I'm going to do it quietly, says Joseph. But while he thought on these things, behold, the angel of Yahweh appeared unto him in a dream, saying, Joseph, thou son of David, fear not to take unto thee Miriam thy wife, for that which is conceived in her is of the Ruach HaKodesh. While they were engaged, it was binding. It would still require a certificate of divorce. If it had been proven that she strayed, she would have been called someone who fornicated. It's at this particular point that the exception clause, porneo, applies. The word says, Yeshua said, except for fornication, when two people are unmarried. When they are married, it's adultery. There is no recourse for adultery. You are stoned to death. So if you continue to be an adulteress or an adulterer, even until Yeshua comes, and don't give up your sin, you won't have any place in the kingdom. That's how it is. And of course, there are those who think, well, you know, I'm glad I never did this. And this thing, I'm so pure. Yeshua said, hold on, my brother. The other day when you were at work, you lusted. He said, if you lust, you've committed adultery in your mind. This thing is serious. We must be constantly cleansing our minds. So you say, my wife, my husband has a problem. Let's go to counseling. We cannot counsel on marriage unless we understand Yah's word. So the counselor realizes, oh, I'm assuming it's a male. His problem would not be too dissimilar from the one he's counseling, because he too was designed in the form, in the image of Yah. Understand. Slim Smith said, conversation is all I need from you. because it gives me inspiration. But you go into marriage and you don't know how to conduct yourself because you need him. You're just looking for a crutch. Are you with me? You're looking for somebody to lean on. You heard the song, did you? Lean on me when you're not strong. Because you coming to the marriage, you can't stand up straight. You just keep leaning. And if he's not there, you will fall. The word says to Samson, as he cries out to us this morning, no one is big enough for you to give your whole heart to. He says, and Delilah plagued him. And he gave his whole heart. His whole heart to her. While she has the Philistines waiting. I tell you, circumstances today are like the Philistines, waiting to trap you. As you see happening in the news, even with the rich and the wealthy. And people are saying, how could that have happened to that man and that woman? They have everything. And Delilah asks, Samson, what makes you so strong? No, the question is, Samson, what makes you so weak? That's a society in which we have. And we dress up in our tunic and we go to church holding another person's husband and another person's wife. And the church gives us a status that doesn't belong to us. Go, the word says, and sin no more. In Yeshua's name I pray. Amen.